All right. Hey, Girl Scouts. This is Katie from Cincinnati, Ohio. We're sitting here in my backyard on this beautiful Saturday morning. I hope everybody's having a great weekend so far. And while we wait for others to join us this morning, just when you pop on, just tell us who you are and where you're watching from. And tell us if you could grow any kind of food in your garden, what would you grow? This year I am really excited to grow some more herbs. We did cilantro and basil last year. We're also going to try growing some squash this year. So that's what's going to happen in our garden. So tell us what you guys want to do, if that's something that you do. All right. And today we are going over the So What journey. So if you didn't catch us last Saturday at 10 a.m., we started off by going over what food prints are and getting started on that food forage activity. We had a lot of fun, so if you missed that, feel free to just look for that on our Girl Scouts of Western Ohio Facebook page. It's still up, so if you missed out, you can definitely still take part in that. And today we're going to be working on the Harvest Award. So I'm really excited to kind of take you guys through what that looks like once we get enough people popped on. So do we know how many people we have?
Looks like around 14, 15 right now.
All right. Do we have any comments yet? I know it's a little tough to see. All right. All right, well, welcome everyone. We are just getting started here. So we, again, we're just saying where we're from and what kind of veggies or fruits might you grow if you were going to start a garden this summer. All right, so while we're waiting for the comments, we'll just get started. So today we're going to do step 1 of the Harvest Award, which is one of the requirements of the So What journey. So step 1 of this award is to identify and dig into a food issue or a land issue that you're interested in. So we're going to do that piece today. And then on your own, you'll do steps 2 and 3. So step 2 is to capture your vision for change and setting your own goal and creating a project plan. And then step 3 is to create change. Sorry, get a little tickle in my throat here this morning. So, all right, and then step 3 is to create change. So to either influence policy or to educate and inspire others to act on a solution that you identify, a solution to maybe the issue that you learned about in step 1 of the Harvest Award. So like I said, today we're doing step 1, which is food waste. Do we have any viewers yet that have introduced themselves?
Yeah, so we've got a few people who are growing in their gardens.
Awesome. Tell me what they're growing.
Amber says she's growing pumpkins.
Ooh, nice.
Katrina is growing tomatoes, green beans, and zucchini.
Excellent.
Amy is growing tomatoes. And Callie in New Jersey wants to plant a garden as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for watching from all the way in New Jersey. That's awesome. We tried to grow tomatoes last summer, and funny story, we have a little deer problem in this neighborhood, and I got one tomato that I was so excited when it was ripe, and I ended up giving it to a friend, and then the rest of the summer, all my tomatoes got eaten by deer. So we're going to try that again this summer and hopefully find some ways to get those deer out of our backyard. So okay, so we're going to go into the topic of food waste. So what is it and why is this happening? So when I did some research for this topic, I want to tell you guys that I got most of my information from the USDA website. There's a lot of information on food waste out there that is great for you guys to explore if you're interested in learning more. And also the EPA, so the United States Environmental Protection Agency, that's where really I got most of my information. So I learned that the average American throws away over 100 pounds of food each year, which is a ton of food. That's so much food that's going into our landfills. And as I'm sure you already know, our landfills are just overfilled with other types of garbage that it's insane that we have so much food going to waste, when this is actually something that you're going to find out is really easy to prevent. So that 100 plus pounds of food translates to over $1,600 worth of food that a family of 4 on average is throwing away every year. $1,600 is a lot of money to a lot of people here. So that's a lot of money. I think I could go on a really nice vacation with that money. I could probably do some home projects, could probably save a lot of money if I just learned a little bit more about how to be better with the food that I have. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that today. So in the US and a lot of other countries too, we're really fortunate to have an abundance of food in our supermarkets. So even in a pandemic, we're finding that most food is still readily available. We can find an abundance of a ton of different kinds of food, but yet we're still buying way too much food, and it's causing a lot of food to go into our landfills. So there's a bunch of different sources of food waste. So if you can think of any, definitely drop it into the comments. What are the root causes of food waste? So I'm going to go over them, but I would love to hear from you guys first. And I wanted to share too that what I found out from the USDA website, which is the United States Department of Agriculture, they have a whole section on food waste that's really great for learning more about this topic. So about 40% of all food produced in the United States actually never makes it to the table. It ends up in the landfill, which again, there are people out there who are hungry, that can't afford food, and how could we maybe take that food that's not being eaten in our kitchens or at our supermarkets, and what could we do to translate that to people who need that food and otherwise couldn't afford it? Do we have any answers so far? I know there's always a little lag.
Yeah, we do. There's a few. Amy suggests that food expiring is the cause.
That's great.
Christine says we eat out after we shop.
Yes.
And then Ari suggests that leftovers are another one.
All right, so those are all fantastic answers, and that totally matches up with my research here. So buying too much food and eating out after you shop is just a classic problem I think that a lot of us have. So so in the US especially, we have, like I said, an abundance of food at the markets. It is relatively cheap for us to buy, especially, produce doesn't seem like it's that expensive. So, it's very easy to buy more than you can actually eat before it expires. So I know that that's something that I struggle with, especially because a lot of food is packaged to feed a larger family. So for example, when I go to the store and buy spinach, it's usually cheaper to buy a big box of it than it is to buy just a small amount that the 2 people in my household can eat within a week before it goes bad. So it's really tough to make that food go all the way before it expires. So I know with greens like spinach, I love to put it in my smoothies, and I'll put it in my spaghetti sauce and things like that, just to make sure I'm eating it before it goes bad. But that, someone said eating out after you shop, that's a huge problem. You know what? We're busy. We work all day, and we get, maybe we forget to pack our lunch because we overslept, or maybe we're just tired and don't feel like cooking at the end of the day. That's something that's a big problem, and we, so we end up going out to eat, and then there's food that we bought that's in our kitchen that we're not eating. So that's something that's very easily preventable. And one of the ways that we've been doing that here in my household is making sure that we have some recipes that we prep ahead of time, so that we have food ready to go. I know we made a big batch of chicken and rice soup a few weeks ago, and we froze the extra. So we actually just took that out of the freezer a couple days ago, and so we'll have some meals that we can just pop in the microwave, and we don't have to go out to eat. So that's just one way that you can prevent it. if you guys think of any ways that you can prevent food waste, definitely let me know. And definitely food waste, a big part of it is households buying more than they can eat, but it's not all. All that food waste, that 40% is not all just coming straight from households too. So there are definitely other sources of it. So definitely tell me if you guys think of any ways that you guys reduce food waste. One idea too is that we can take an inventory of what we have in our kitchen and make sure that we have that list so that we know what we have before we buy more. I know, for example, we sometimes forget that we have 2 or 3 cartons of chicken broth, and then we go to make soup, and then we go to the store and buy it. Now that's a pretty shelf stable item, so luckily we don't have to worry about it going bad for a really long time, but we probably could have saved some money and not bought that. So there's definitely ways to do that. So what do we got in the comments here?
Yeah, we've got a few solutions. Amy suggests that composting might be one.
Hey, awesome. We're going to talk about that later. That's great.
And then Christine says plan a menu for the week. That's something we do as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so planning a menu for the week is a great idea. And
we got one more.
What you got?
Lindsay says that to only buy what you need, planning ahead of time helps.
Yeah, planning ahead of time is huge, and especially menu planning. So if you know that you make a big batch of soup in the crock pot and it's going to last you 2 or 3 days, that can really help in reducing food waste. And it does take a little bit of willpower too sometimes, because sometimes I just get really sick of my leftovers, but that's what freezers are for. So oftentimes we get tired of whatever we made for the week, and we'll just pop the leftovers in the freezer, and then we'll go back to it maybe when we haven't had it for a little while. That can always help us too. All right, anything else?
Yeah, Callie says to write a list of what you have and then shop.
Yes.
And then Mary also suggests composting. She suggests veggie clippings, eggshells, and other things.
Awesome. So we are totally going to talk about compost in just a second, because we actually just started a compost pile here. This is one of my pandemic activities that we finally had time for, that we've just always been putting off. So that's a great way to reduce food waste. But there are other ways that food is wasted aside from households. So if you can think of any, put it in the comments, but I've got a couple here for you. So not everything that the supermarket buys to sell to people actually gets sold before it expires. I mean, especially if something's in season, like apples or things like that, they might have an abundance of it because maybe this year was just a really abundant year for apples and it was just too many produced, and not everybody wants to eat apples, so those can often get wasted, and a lot of times when those foods expire at the store, they just throw them in the garbage. Not all supermarkets actually donate those foods to food banks and families in need. So that's one way that food waste could be reduced greatly, is if markets and even restaurants too could easily reduce food waste by donating it. And there are actually some restaurants and markets out there that do that. I know that I used to work for a really large coffee chain that actually invested in technology that tracked their sales of different products, so they would know exactly how much coffee they needed to make at certain times of day, and those ready-to-eat snacks and things like that, they would actually only buy what they thought they would sell, and that was a huge factor in reducing food waste for that chain. We got some loud noises going on over here, so sorry about those sirens if you can hear that. Anything in the comments while we're taking a break?
Yeah, just another suggestion saying that Abby says to use your leftovers to make a different meal is another.
Oh yeah, using leftovers to make a different meal. I actually feel like I have found that those days where we're just cleaning out the kitchen because we don't want to go shopping and we're just like, let's use what we have before they go bad, some of those are like the best meals that we've made because we just have to improvise, right? All right, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, so we talked about how we can reduce our own food waste in the household. We've talked a little bit about how markets and restaurants could reduce their food waste. So I guess let's just move on to the compost part of it. So composting, if you're not familiar, is a way to take scraps of food and maybe food that's gone bad in your household, as well as some other things, and turn it into soil that can actually be used in your vegetable garden. So we just started this. I just actually found out how to do it from a Facebook Live a few weeks ago. So I'm brand new at composting. But this is just one way that you can reduce food waste. But I will say that it definitely does not replace being smart about what you're buying, and it doesn't replace the impact that supermarkets and restaurants can have in reducing food waste. So we're going to go over here in just a second. So what we do is we collect scraps of food from our kitchen. Now you can only do certain scraps. Not everything can go in your compost, but some examples that have actually already been shared were eggshells, vegetable scraps, so like potato peels, just like leftover greens that have gone bad, or scraps from when you were cooking something, coffee grounds. We drink a lot of coffee here, so that's a big one for us. We got tons of coffee grounds, and those actually provide a ton of nutrition in your compost that actually turns it into a really like dense, nutrient-rich soil that can make it really easy to grow fruits and vegetables in your garden. So if you guys know of any other things that can go in a compost, definitely put that in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys think. But what I learned recently is that, so you have two types of materials that go into a compost. So you have green materials, so like your vegetable scraps, your coffee grinds, eggshells. I even heard that you can put a tea bag that you've used in there. So those are all what you call green materials. And then you also have brown materials. So that would be like your like dried leaves. So like in the fall, you can actually save those dried leaves to put in the compost. There's a ton of different things. Pine needles, cardboard, as long as there's no like ink or coating on it, you don't want any like chemicals like that could be hard on the compost. I've even heard that if you don't use fabric softener, you can actually use dryer lint to put in your compost. There's all kinds of things that you can put in there. Although the more research that I do on what you can and can't compost, the more I find that it's actually quite controversial. I've seen certain things that are conflicting information, but a few things I know that you definitely can't put in compost would be onions, citrus fruit peels, and what else? Anything with like meat or oils. Those kinds of things, first of all, they can attract rodents, which we don't want in our backyards. Definitely don't want that. And they're just really bad for the compost. Do we have any ideas from our viewers?
So I know Callie mentioned banana peels. Is that something we can do?
Yeah, I put banana peels in there, so hopefully that's okay. I have seen that banana peels are okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then Andrea suggests newspaper.
Newspaper, yes, I have heard that you can put newspaper in the compost. And so in Cincinnati, where I live, because of coronavirus, the city's actually suspended yard waste pickup, I think until later in May sometime. So we have like bins and bags full of yard clippings that we actually can put into our compost now. So that is actually a big reason why we started the compost here, because we just have so much yard waste from all the raking and lawn mowing that we're doing. We figured we might as well do something good with it. Anything else?
Yeah, Abby also suggests coffee grounds.
Coffee grounds, yes.
And
coffee grounds are great, and actually some coffee shops will save their leftover used coffee grounds to give to people to put in their garden. So they're kind of highly sought after.
And Christine suggests potato peels.
Yes, potato peels.
And Michelle has a question about apple cores. Do you know anything about that?
I don't. That's a great question. I can definitely find out more information about that. I would think that you'd be able to put those in compost. I don't see why not, but it is important that we verify that before we put it in the compost, because you don't want to put things in your compost that can harm it and make it more difficult to break down into soil. But I would think it'd be fine. Anything else? All right, let's just go over to our little compost pile and we can see what it looks like. So it's a little darker over here because the sun is kind of blocked, but so we made our little compost pile. We wanted to keep it out of the way because it doesn't look super pretty. We also put an extra fence around it because we have a dog that we like to let run around back here, and we didn't want him getting into it because he is a puppy and loves to get into everything. So if you want to take the camera over here, you can see we've got a ton of dried leaves. We've got some green leaves from when we clipped some of the bushes out back. And if you really dig in here, you can see some of our eggshells and lots and lots of coffee grounds. We actually put a little bit of soil in there too, just to get it going. I've heard that kind of helps. And this is really just what the compost bin looks like after, what has it been, like 2-3 weeks? It really hasn't been that long since we've had it. So I learned that it can take 2 months to 2 years for your compost to become usable soil. So I'm really hoping that it's more like 2 months than 2 years, but you never know, really. This is just the earth doing its thing here. So now there are definitely some really fancy compost bins that you can get, but we had learned that you can just use chicken wire and some like stakes that you put into the ground. And so we already had these materials on us in our garage, so we just used that. But if you wanted it to be out of the way, you can actually buy or build your own bin. So that's, you know, really up to you. And I would also recommend keeping a pail or something in your kitchen so you can collect the food scraps and then just take a big batch of it out here all at once. We actually freeze our food scraps. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I've learned that I heard that you can do that, and we'll see if that affects it in any bad way. But when we freeze it, it just keeps it kind of out of our sight, and it just I guess just makes it so it doesn't smell in our kitchen. So that's why I do that. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, so there's a question just from Vanessa. What's the best waste for compost?
The best what?
Best waste for compost.
Oh, that's a good question. I would say things that are nutritious, like coffee grounds and eggshells, actually have a ton of nutrients that go into compost and like really help make that soil extra nutritious. But you do need, I think, 3 parts brown material to 1 part green. So it looks like we actually maybe have more green than we need. So we might want to focus on putting in some more brown stuff in our compost next, just to even it out. So you need to make sure that there's like a good balance of nutrients. But like I said, the coffee grounds, people will go to coffee shops to get them just because they're so good for gardens. And people sometimes actually even put worms in their compost to help break that down. We haven't done that yet, but I feel like maybe that's something in our future.
There's a question from Markel. He's asking, does it smell really bad?
Great question, Markel. You know, I don't smell anything right now. We haven't had an issue with smell in our kitchen because we freeze the compost. We haven't had an issue with smell, but I think maybe the food scraps in your kitchen could potentially smell. But I think it would be just like putting it in your garbage. Like if you leave your garbage you know, overfilling for too long, then it's definitely going to smell if there's food in there. But because we don't put oils, or like if you ate half a slice of pizza, you know, with pepperoni on it and all those things, like, you're not going to toss that into your compost. That's what would start smelling after a while. And like I said, we don't put meat in here. Again, that would create more smell, and it would also attract rodents. And we really just don't want that in our yards. So great question. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
All right. Oh, look, you can see one of our banana peels in there. Really fun stuff, guys. Okay, well, we have kind of gone through all the things I had to say about compost, so we'll just sit right back down and wrap up here. Oh, actually, I'm going to show you guys my, this right here is going to be our vegetable garden this summer. I'm really excited. When we first moved into this place, this garden bed was about half the size, and we're working on expanding it. But I think we might need to put some wire around it because, like I said, we have that deer problem. So hopefully they'll stay away. But I have heard that if you plant really strong smelling herbs like lavender, that can help with the deer problem. So, okay, well, that is pretty much all that I had to tell you about compost today. And again, that is just one way that you can help reduce the amount of food waste that goes into a landfill. And if you're gardening, it really saves you money. A few years ago, we had a community garden plot, and we had to buy a ton of compost from a plant nursery, and that actually really adds up. It's quite expensive. So if you could just make it yourself, why not, right? So, okay, just want to wrap up here. So, for the next steps of your Harvest Award, you're going to just need to create a project plan and then take action on an issue related to food or land use that is interesting to you. So maybe today you were inspired about food waste, or maybe you have something else in mind that you want to take action on. You know, for example, you know, a lot of people are wanting to start composts right now, so you could easily educate and inspire your community to start composting more. This is also a great time to talk to different restaurants that are still open, to see if they have any food that's almost expired that they could donate to food banks. I know food banks are in huge need right now, especially. So those are just a few examples of ways that you could take action on reducing food waste. And remember too that this is also a great way to start brainstorming and thinking about ideas for your Gold Award project. So by completing the So What journey, you're actually completing one of the prerequisites to getting your Gold Award. And food waste and food issues are a great starter for a Gold Award project. So definitely start thinking about that. And just to kind of recap, we did step 1 of that Harvest Award by talking about food waste and diving into kind of ways that it can be reduced today. So thank you all for watching with me today. And if you're not a Girl Scout, but you're interested in learning more about becoming a member, you can go to girlscouts.org/join. And at 2 p.m. today, you can also join us on Facebook Live. Our outdoor program manager, Tori, is doing the Ambassador Survival Camper Badge, which sounds really awesome. So thank you again for watching, and we'll see you at 2. Peace out, Girl Scouts.